الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم ثبتنا بالقول الثابت في الحياة الدنيا واجعلنا من الهداة المهتدين. I ask Allah to give us firmness in this dunya and the akhirah, and He enables us to gain His pleasure and His acceptance. We are now, inshallah, starting a new year from Ramadan to Ramadan, where we will have our weekly sittings after Salat al-Maghrib every Friday, bi'idhnillah. And the first book we have chosen is something which is very important to the Muslim, not just the Talib al-Ilm, but to the Muslim. Because our father, Adam alayhi salam, was created. And when he was created, this signified a start of an intense battle which would continue until Yawm al-Qiyamah. But his father, our father, came down and he taught his children the oneness of Allah. But the problem is as generations passed, Bani Adam fell into shirk. And Allah sent messengers and prophets in quick succession with books, with revelation, teaching them the difference between Tawheed and Shirk. Until we had the final prophet and the seal of all the messengers, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he came with this glorious Quran and the final revelation. And his message was not indifferent to what any of the Anbiya had previously came with, all the way back to Adam. This is the haqq, and it's been the haqq since Allah created Adam. But what is now different is that Allah has ceased sending new revelation, and He ceased sending new prophets and messengers. So from the Ummah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we have scholars, and the scholars come and they revive and they teach the people Tawheed, and they revive the message that our father Adam was teaching his children until Yawm al-Qiyamah. And once the generations passed, the noble Salaf, etc., the ulama took up that same task and they continued. The Prophet ﷺ has told us that there's a promise from Allah that this will continue until Yawm al-Qiyamah. And these four principles that we have in this book signify this. But with this introduction, I want you to ask yourself, my brother, my sister, people who are here, people who are listening, ask this question to yourself sincerely. How well can you live your life without being connected to the scholars? Because what we are saying here is that you are disconnecting yourself. By disconnecting yourself from the scholars, you're disconnecting yourself from the message of the prophets and the messengers, and what your father himself came with, alayhi salam. So now we have this risala, this small booklet, this treatise, and the very purpose of this risala is to know what Tawheed is and to know what Shirk is and the difference between the two. And Shaykh Muhammad rahimahullah at-Tamimi does a very good job of summarizing everything that you really need to know on a very basic level. Not everything, but the very core principles between Tawheed and Shirk. And the second reason why this book is very important, or the purpose of this book, so the first one is talking about the difference between Tawheed and Shirk, but the second one is so that we know our purpose in life. If we don't know why we are here and what we have been created for, then your actions are futile, and we will see this here in the Risala and some of the Qawaid and some of the implications of the Qawaid that the Shaykh talks about. So the book is called al-Qawaid al-Arba, and Qawaid is the plural in Arabic of qaida. And the qaida in Arabic is something ma buniya alayhi ghayru, something which is built upon. So this is now the foundation. This is the foundation of people who say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah correctly. So we now know with this title of the book, it's not something which is specific to Tulab al-Ilm. It's absolutely general for every single person who says La ilaha illallah. Because it's the qaida. Without these principles, everything will fall. But unfortunately, people level doubts at the author and those people who study his book and are influenced by his da'wah. And they say, people are being killed in the world, the Muslims are weak, people are not praying salah in the masjid. All you're talking about is, where is Allah? All you're talking about is the oneness of Allah. Everyone says, La ilaha illallah. Brother, leave this alone. Let's go and help these people. Let's go and do something proactive. Imam Muhammad, rahimahullah, made this, and this shows you why this doubt is false. He made these principles the very basis of his da'wah. He didn't come and tell people, well, that fiqhi opinion of yours is wrong, or we should be helping those people who are being tormented over there, because torment is from the sunnah of Allah. What's happening in Burma right now, and Syria right now, and all these places, it's nothing new to 2016 or 17 or 18. It's been happening since, like we've said at the very beginning, that there's always been this battle between right and wrong. Always been there. But right will only become triumphant when it places its priorities correctly. And if we look at what Shaykh Muhammad did, irrespective of those people who blamed him in his time and after his time, these four principles he focused on, and he didn't move on until it became firm. And as a result, what happened? A country was established. A whole country was established. Mecca, Medina was liberated, and people weren't doing shirk there anymore. And if you go back to the introduction that we had last year of Thalat al-Usul, the first lesson that we did, we talked about some of the seerah and some of the benefits of Imam Muhammad's life, rahimahullah, and we talked about the state that he came in. I don't want to repeat myself, but Mecca at that time, Aziziyah, anybody who's been to Mecca now, go for Hajj, Umrah, Aziziyah was a brothel network. It was a brothel network. Homosexuality was open in Mecca. 100,000 reward in that land, they were doing homosexuality there. Alcohol was rampant. And one of the mashayikh and one of the historians said Medina was shut from this period to that period. The haram in Medina, the masjid itself was shut. Nobody prayed salah in that masjid for that period. This is what he came. And in where his areas in Najd, there were graves. People used to go to Jubail, to the east coast, and they used to worship the graves that were there, and they used to go to Taif and they used to worship the graves. It's no different to what the Jahiliyyah that was faced. Well, I'm not going to say no different, because I don't want to draw that parallel to the Jahiliyyah of the Quraysh, but the signs were definitely there. And the Shaykh himself wrote a treatise where he's talking about the signs of Jahiliyyah that he was faced with himself, and he drew comparisons between his situation and the Quraysh. But my point here is, look what happened. 200 years on, we're still talking about this man in this book. 200 years on, this country is still established upon Tawheed, alhamdulillah. The only country in the world where shirk is illegal. They will arrest you if you practice shirk. When you go to Mecca and Medina, they will stop you physically from practicing shirk. If you were to engage in sihr, and issuing ta'weed and these guys, you'll get arrested in Saudi Arabia. The point here is we're not talking about political, it's not a political lecture. We're not trying to talk about in favor, but we're just talking about the effects of his da'wah. This man has reformed the world, because people in the West, people in the East, people in the North and South have benefited from these four principles. But there's another doubt, and some of them say that, well, what he came with was something new. He was a Khariji. He said Muslims, people say La ilaha illallah, and he called them kuffar. He said this person is doing shirk. He was a Khariji. This is what they say, and this is what they've said about him. And they continue to say this. He's an extremist, he's this and he's that. And what he came with is something new, and it's not found in the Kitab of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And this is why I've decided, bi'idhnillah, to take this book here, Majmu Fatawa of Ibn Taymiyyah. This is the first volume, the very first volume, from 37 volumes. Ibn Taymiyyah himself has the Qawaid al-Arba in here. He didn't bring it in the 37th volume or the 15th volume. He brought it in the why? Because Ahl Sunnah understand this. The Salaf understood this. The Anbiya and the Rusul understood this. Our father Adam taught this to us. Tawheed is your establishment. And subhanAllah, when I was reading this volume, and it was completely disconnected to the dars that we have today, I was reading it, and the more I read it, and the more I contemplated, and I said, subhanAllah, every single chapter within it's not a chapter, but every single, theme or genre or topic that the Shaykh is talking about is connected to these four. And Allah knows best, I've not heard this from any of the mashayikh. But it's as if Shaykh Muhammad, he himself has explained this book, or he has summarized everything in this first volume in these four qawaid. And we will see this, we will see the parable. But even if I am wrong in that, it is well known that Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab al-Tamimi, rahimahullah, was heavily influenced by Ibn Taymiyyah. And the very introduction of the Qawaid al-Arba is directly taken from Ibn al-Qayyim's book, Wabil al-Sayyib. So with this introduction, we will see that, even just to give you a short example, if I go to the contents page, and this is the very beginning of Majmu Fatawa, and bi'idhnillah, this is something which I myself have benefited from before anybody. And this is a question again I would like to ask yourself. As in, how serious are we about Islam and these four principles and the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ? How many people are genuinely concerned that they will live their life not understanding this book, and they will die and they will get buried, and nobody will hear of them again? Irrelevant, he's gone. He's a memory in our past. Yeah, there was this man, he's gone. But for you, what does that mean? What does that mean? We have 114 chapters here, some 500 pages. It's not extensive, but it's the words of your Lord. We have the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. How many people are concerned that they will not understand Bukhari, not because of Bukhari himself, but the statements within of the Wahi of the Prophet ﷺ before they die? Muslim, Ibn Majah, Sunan, Tirmidhi, and the list goes on. How many people are concerned that they will not understand or ever get to read Ibn Taymiyyah before they pass away? And this is why I thought this is very interesting for us now, not only that we can see the parable and we can see the inspiration where he got his learning from Shaykh Muhammad, and we can also see that there is a sanad for his da'wah. It's not just that he plucked something out, it's connected to the earliest generations. But also so that us as Tullab al-Ilm can get the opportunity to read Ibn Taymiyyah, even if it's just one volume or a few pages from it. Shaykh al-Islam begins Majmu Fatawa by saying قاعدة في جماعة والفرقة والسبب ذلك والنتيجة. This is the very beginning of Majmu Fatawa. He's saying that there's a principle of remaining united upon the haqq, following the Quran and Sunnah, understanding of Salaf al-Salih. And the Tawheed is your base. And once you leave this, you'll become disunited. What happens if you become disunited? You become weak. Falseness or falsehood would spread. Confusion, innovation, misguidance, oppression, being overcome by your enemy. And this is one of the biggest forms of discord And the Shaykh then goes on in the pages after that, and he gives tafsir of the ayah where Allah says, شَرَعَ لَكُم مِّنَ الدِّينِ مَا وَصَّى بِهِ نُوحٌ وَالَّذِي أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ, that you have the same religion that was given to Nuh and Ibrahim, Musa wa Isa, and أَقِيمُوا الدِّينِ, be united upon these qawaid, وَلَا تَتَفَرَّقُوا فِيهِ, don't become disunited in it. Because the biggest form of disrespect and disunity is when you leave the sunnah and the way of the ulama, and then we start ending up creating deviations and groups and sects. So to go into the book, we have the Shaykh, he said, Rahimahullah, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, and he begins with the Basmalah. And this is the sunnah of Allah with every single surah except al-Bara, beginning with the Basmalah. And the Prophet ﷺ, whenever he used to write, he used to begin with the Basmalah. And the ayah of Sulaiman, Innahu min Sulaiman wa innahu Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, he said that he sent a letter and he began with the Basmalah. But why do we begin with the Bismillah? And some of the ulama have differed, and some of them said, the majority of the ulama said that we begin with Bismillah, or in its full form, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, out of isti'anah, seeking Allah's assistance. We are beginning our studies seeking Allah's assistance. I begin reciting the book seeking Allah's assistance. I begin my wudu, I begin my food, I begin all of these actions seeking Allah's assistance. Some of the ulama said we are seeking Allah's blessings. Others from the ulama have given different reasoning as to why we start with the basmalah, so that it can become blessed, the action. But the majority of the ulama have said that it goes with the isti'anah, seeking Allah's assistance, because we need Allah's help to perform every single action. أسأل الله الكريم رب العرش العظيم أن يتولاك في الدنيا والآخرة. That he asks and he makes dua to Allah al-Kareem, the Lord of the mighty throne, that he allies himself with you. He supports you in your dunya and the akhirah. And even just in this one sentence, we can see the hikmah of the Shaykh. And this is something known in the Arabic language as bara'a al-istidlal. And bara'a al-istidlal refers to when a person gives an introduction, an indirect, implicit introduction about something that's going to come explicitly afterwards. What does that mean? He said, As'alallah, Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. He's exemplifying to you Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, making dua. Al-Kareem, one of the names and attributes of Allah, another aspect of Tawheed. Rabb al-Arsh al-Azim, Rabb al-Arsh al-Azim, Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. So this very first sentence, the Shaykh himself has began by categorizing the first sentence into the three categories of Tawheed. وَأَن يَجْعَلَكَ مُبَارَكًا أَيْنَمَا كُنْتَ. He makes you blessed, Allah makes you blessed wherever you may be. So the Shaykh begins with the dua, or making dua for the reader. And there are two things that we can notice from this, which is that number one, that no guidance and no assistance and no uprightness can come about except if we have the tawfiq of Allah to do so. And the Shaykh is clearly teaching us that lesson here. He doesn't go into saying straight away, qaida number one, qaida, principle number one, he's making dua from Allah for you and for himself to be assisted, to gain the guidance from our master, and that he allows us to draw closer to him, because without that we cannot achieve anything. Even if you understand these qawaid, even if these qawaid is in your mother tongue, the dua is very important. But the second thing that we also learn, Imam al-Qurtubi has extensive kalam and speech on the relationship between the alim and the talib al-ilm. And Imam al-Qurtubi says that it's from the rights of the teacher and the student that they have mutual respect and love for one another. And he's clearly exemplifying that here by making dua for you. He was not a wretched man. He was not somebody who was foul. He was not somebody who was there to try to take your country and to kill you and all of these things that they say about him. Why would he do that if he's making dua for you? Number 2, Imam al-Qurtubi said that it's from the rights of the alim and the talib al-ilm that they seek to support one another and they seek unity with one another. And this is what he is clearly doing here, making dua for you. That you can benefit from him, you can benefit from the Quran and the Sunnah firstly, and from the tawfiq of Allah through him, that you can benefit from the correct understanding, but that you also gain what Allah gave to him. It's not something that he wants to keep for himself. He's quite al-Arba mine, it's my book and nobody's going to... May Allah give you it also. May Allah make you have the ability to benefit yourself and the Muslimin, your household, your environment, your community, your children, the youth around you, the kuffar around you. Unity. Imam al-Qurtubi also said that the rights from the talib al-ilm and the teacher is that they don't burden one another. They don't burden one another. And the Shaykh clearly is making dua for you, and he has made this book very, very simple and short and concise so that it is easy for you, and so that the material that he is teaching you with, the resource and the information that he's giving to you is very easy. You don't have to be a professor in a university to understand what he is saying here. And this is clearly proof that the teacher has to be very attentive to the needs of the people. This is what Imam Qurtubi is saying here. And another point, I mean, the kalam of Imam Qurtubi when he's talking about the relationship between the alim and the muta'allim, the teacher and the student, is extensive. But a fourth point, and the last one here, is that the teacher must display good manners, and that the student is required to learn from those manners before anything else, and that he goes away replicating these. So if the Shaykh starts with the basmala, and he's teaching you of the tawheed of Allah that will save you from the eternal hellfire, and then on top of that he makes dua that Allah assists you in your dunya and akhirah, and that he makes you blessed wherever you are, clearly shows that this man was of noble manners and etiquettes, especially towards you the reader. But how would he have been like in person, rahimahullah? وَأَن يَجْعَلَكَ مِمَّنْ إِذَا أُعْتِيَ شَكَرْ وَإِذَا أُبْتُلِيَ صَبَرْ وَإِذَا أَذْنَبَ اسْتَغْفَرْ. That he makes you, and this is continuing dua, that he makes you of those people that when they are given, they make shukr. When they are given, they give thanks. They are grateful to their Lord. If they are tested by their Lord, they are patient. And if they fall and they sin, they turn back to their Lord and their Master and say, "Oh Allah, I have sinned. I have done something wrong. You have told me to do something and I haven't done it." فَإِنَّ هَؤُلَاءِ الثَّلَاثَةِ, these three keys. Number 1, shukr. Number 2, sabr. And number 3, istighfar. Unwan as-sa'ad. These are the keys for happiness. How many people are seeking millions and billions and erecting huge buildings seeking happiness, when the keys for happiness is not something tangible? The keys to Jannah is not something tangible. Nobody goes to their grave and has a key for Jannah. The keys for happiness is when you have prosperity, you rejoice in the favor of Allah, and you seek more from your Master. You seek more from your Master. Your Master is willing to give to you, seek more from your Master. But use what your Master gives you to obey your Master. This is key number 1. But again, from the Sunnah of Allah, there's not a person that has ever existed, and the leader of all mankind was tested the most, except that every single one of us will go through some kind of hardship. So when you go through hardship, sabr. And know that through sabr there is relief. And know that through being tested, you are actually getting closer to your Lord. Every single one of us, I'm sure, have been through a stage in their life where they've thought that the world is falling in on me now. There's nobody, I can't even speak to anybody about this. This is just, I'm extremely stressed out. But then how many one of us here, those people who have tawheed, had sabr, and Allah opened a way for you and you didn't even realize that this is what Allah had ready for you. And you saw the test out and Allah made that thing go away as if it wasn't even there. But not only that, He gave you something that you never even imagined, and He opened that restricted that place that you were in a way that you didn't even imagine that you wanted. Allah will increase you if you connect yourself to Him. He will give you relief and He will give you the happiest moment of your life if you have sabr. Words will not describe that moment when you get that relief after sabr. Happiness. And the third key for happiness, and again, this is from the Sunnah of Allah, every single one of us will sin, every single one of us will make mistake, is that when you make that sin, and when you fall, you admit your fault to your Lord, to your Master, you turn back to Him and you say, my Lord, I have made a mistake. And you make yourself humble towards Him. Prophet ﷺ said, وَمَا تَوَادَ أَحَدٌ لِلَّهِ إِلَّا رَفَعَهُ. There's nobody that makes himself humble towards Allah except that Allah will make him better than how he was from before. How many people have sinned? A terrible sin. He killed 100 people. Not punched them in their face, not stole. He killed 100 people. After istighfar, the angels started disputing about this man. After istighfar, his station was elevated in a manner he didn't see himself in the dunya. Allah will raise you. And these are the keys for happiness. But some of the explanation, those who explain this book from the Mashayikh, may Allah preserve them all, have said that the reason why the Shaykh is giving you this introduction, this lengthy dua, is because obviously out of sincerity for the talib al-ilm and the reader, but also there's only the people who understand these qawaid will have these keys for happiness. People who are deviated in aqeedah and people who have shirk in their lives will not understand إِذَا أُؤْتِيَ شَكَرْ وَإِذَا أُبْتُلِيَ صَبَرْ وَإِذَا أَذْنَبَ أَسْتَغْفَرَ. They will not understand this. How many people make shirk instead of doing shukr? How many people make shirk instead of having sabr, as we will see? How many people extend their sin instead of having tawheed and making istighfar back to Allah? طيب. The Shaykh then goes on and says, اعلم أرشدك الله لطاعته. Again making dua for you. He said, pay attention to this, my brothers and sisters. Because now he's saying something which is very important. اعلم. May Allah guide you to His obedience. أن الحنيفية ملة إبراهيم. That Hanifiyya is the religion of Ibrahim. And the word millah is used here. Some of the ulama have said millah can only refer to a religion which is correct. And Ibrahim was on that religion. It's not deen, it's not diyana, millah. A millah is something where the usul are based upon tawheed. The qawaid are based upon tawheed. And what is this? أن تعبد الله وحده مخلصا له الدين كما قال تعالى. Hanifiyya is having ikhlas in Allah. Is to have tawheed in Allah, to make Him one in lordship, in worship, and asma wa sifat. So you worship Allah alone and you abandon yourself from shirk completely, in all of its forms. Some of the ulama have said that it extends further and the person remains steadfast upon this ikhlas and tawheed. This is the meaning of Hanifiyyah. But now there's a question here. Why does Allah talk about Ibrahim being a Hanif when Adam was a Hanif, when Nuh was a Hanif, and Hud and Salih and all of the Anbiya that came after? All of them were Hunafa. Why is Ibrahim singled out here? Imam al-Tabari in his tafsir, rahimahullah, said Ibrahim is being mentioned specifically here because he is the father of Tawheed, for two reasons. Because number one, from his lineage and progeny became Anbiya after Anbiya after Anbiya. So he was the father in that sense, number one. But also number two, as a forerunner for Muhammad alayhi salam. Because between Ibrahim and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the religion became cultish. So after Ibrahim, people attributed themselves to Yahud or Huda. So then they became Yahudis. And there's people who said that we are Nasara, we are Nasara. Ibrahim was completely free from that. So when Muhammad alayhi salam came with the same message of Ibrahim, he wasn't Yahud, he wasn't Nasra. He was Hanif, just like we are Muslim today. Ibrahim is singled out for this purpose. كما قال تعالى وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون. Allah has created jinn, man, except to become Hanif, to worship Allah alone. فإذا عرفت أن الله خلقك لإبادته, if you know that Allah has created you with the sole purpose to worship Him, فاعلم أن الإبادة لا تسمى إبادة إلا مع التوحيد. Then know that ibadah can never be classed as ibadah except if you have tawheed. So somebody could be worshipping an idol, may Allah preserve us. Somebody could be worshipping a superhero, may Allah preserve us and our families and our children. They could be worshipping themselves, they could be worshipping money, they could be worshipping celebrities. None of this is true worship except the worship of Allah alone. إلا مع التوحيد. كما أن الصلاة. Now he makes an interesting parable here. كما أن الصلاة, that salat, just like salat, لا تسمى الصلاة إلا مع الطهارة. Would a person pray and he is in a form of major impurity or he hasn't got wudu, would this salat be accepted? None of the ummah from the time of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam until Yawm al-Qiyamah would say that this person's salah is accepted, irrespective of what madhab you follow. You could be a Shia, you could be a Sunni, you could be a Jahmi, you could be a Salafi. Doesn't matter. Nobody will say that you can pray salat without wudu, without purification. So here's the parable. فَإِذَا دَخَلَ الشِّرْكُ فِي الْإِبَادَةِ فَسَدَتْ. Just like hadath إِذَا دَخَلَ فِي الطَّهَارَةِ. Shirk nullifies tawheed, just like impurity, whether it's an actual physical impurity like urine or defecation, or something which is spiritual impurity where you are clean like we are right now, but maybe some of us don't have wudu. This is hadath. Both types. Physical impurity could be on you, or it could be a state that you're in. None of this will be accepted if you pray in this state in salat. Think about how amazing this parable is. People spend hours on tahara on a daily basis. Half an hour in the shower, half an hour picking what he needs to wear, half an hour making sure it looks good, half an hour with his perfume, tahara, tahara, tahara. And there's another way that we know that people are affected from shaitan, where, and this is quite common as well, unfortunately, may Allah preserve us and purify and aid those people who are going through this. Wasawis, constant wasawis. I cannot pray, but I know people, they have not prayed for years. They say La ilaha illallah, they say that they want to go to Jannah. They might even fast in Ramadan, but they cannot pray salat. I'm not clean, brother. I am not clean. My external state is not clean. And this is their whole life through this period. But just like the first example, the person who spends 3 hours in the shower, and like the second example, the person who never prays because he feels that himself being impure, the Shaykh is saying here, you are talking about external impurities. What about the internal one? Have anybody thought about the internal one? How can you live a happy life when you're just worried about the external? How can you be a shakir, a sabir, and a person who goes back to Allah in istighfar and ibadah when you're just worried about the external all the time and the internal is lost? And these people, they will tell you the very intricates about life and the dunya, but when it comes to just 4 basic qawaid of tawheed, they don't know them. So now, unfortunately, the houses have become like graveyards. And the Muslim graveyards are full of people who died saying La ilaha illallah, but they didn't know what the implications were. How many people have died and they've not prayed salah for decades? I'm not clean, my brother. My state, I'm not clean. And they died in that external state without knowing the internal purification that Allah wants from him. And the true reality of life and the situation for what he was created for. But also from this introduction we know another qaida, and the Shaykh has not gone into any of the qawaid just yet, but we also learn from this a very important principle, which is that all acceptance with Allah can only be accepted if you have 2 things. You have to be Hanif, and you have to follow the action in correctness according to the Salaf, according to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, with the understanding of the Salaf. He's made that evident here by saying that Ibrahim alayhi salam was upon the upright religion, the pure religion of Ikhlas. And just like your salah would not be valid without tahara, we know this from the Sunnah, we know this from the understanding of the Sunnah, all of your other actions will not be accepted unless you have this principle in your life. So just to summarize this very beginning, without tawheed, 2 things happen to you. Number 1, all of your actions are pointless. All of your actions. You could have an empire, all of it's pointless. Your life is pointless. Your existence is pointless. May Allah preserve us and protect us from pointlessness. And the second thing we learn from this introduction is that without tawheed, the biggest calamity will happen is when you meet Allah on the Day of Judgment. And Allah said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the best of mankind, لَإِنْ أَشْرَكْتَ لَيَحْبَطَنَّ أَعْمَالُكَ. If you, Muhammad, fell into shirk, all of your actions, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, would be eradicated. This man used to stand a night in prayer. Nobody can match that. Nobody can match this man. This man will come on Yawm al-Qiyamah when every single person will be quiet, including our father, including the man that Allah created with his own 2 hands and spoke to him directly, made him live in Jannah. This man will say, Anna laha, I'm not the person for this. Leave me alone. وَتَرَى كُلَّ أُمَّةٍ جَاثِيَةٍ. Every single man, every single ummah will be on their knees on that day. The sun will be above people's heads. Who is the person that's going to stand up on that day? Alayhi salatu wasalam. May Allah make us with him, make us follow his sunnah, protect him in the dunya and be with him in the akhirah. Let's see what Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said. He said, page 15 and 16, أمر الله بطهارة القلب وطهارة البدن. Allah has commanded that we have purification in our hearts internal as well as our external. The Shaykh has just said the same thing. Shaykh al-Islam said, أن الله أمر بطهارة القلب وأمر بطهارة البدن وكل الطهارتين من الدين الذي أمر الله به وأوجبه. Internal and external purification is wajib from your Lord. قال تعالى, and the nature of Shaykh al-Islam is that he brings so much dalil just for one little point, ayah after ayah after ayah. Suffice to say, ما يريد الله ليجعل عليكم من حرج ولكن يريد ليطهركم وليتم نعمته عليكم. Allah doesn't want hardship for you from the Qawaid al-Arba. He doesn't want hardship for you by creating you. He wants you to purify yourself in the dunya so that He will elevate you in the akhirah. And He was promised to complete that favor upon you. He's promised it. فَنَجِدْ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْمُتَفَقِّهَ وَالْمُتَعَبِّدَ. And we find many people who study knowledge and those people who worship. So now he's talking about the ulama and the devout worshippers. We find most of these people إِنَّمَا هِمَتُهُ الطَّهَارَةُ الْبَدَنِ فَقَط. His only concern is to talk about the external purification. The ulama and the ubbad, the people in the masajid and the mashayikh and the maulanas and the muftis, they don't care about the internal purification. Ibn Taymiyyah said this 800 years ago. وَيَزِيد فِيهَا الْمَشْرُوعِ. And it's as if he is saying here now, the second point that we were just saying. The first one, the Shaykh has said, they don't have ikhlas, number one, they don't have tawheed. And then he said, on top of that, what they do is they make it worse by adding to what has already been legislated. Innovations. Again, the second condition is missing here. What are the two conditions for acceptance with Allah? Ikhlas and niyyah, and following the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ according to the correct understanding. The Shaykh is saying here, many of the ulama, many of those people who worship, all they think is about the external worship, and they increase different things which are not legislated. But then the Shaykh says something which is very interesting here. فَالْأَوَّلُونَ يُخْرِجُونَ إِلَى الْوَسَاوِسِ وَالْوَسْوَسَ الْمَذْمُومَ فِي كَثْرَةِ السَّبِّ الْمَاءِ. And this is what I was just saying now before. That some of those people, and he said, the first group, ulama, those people who are attributed to knowledge, have said that when you have this external purification, give in to the waswasa that you're facing. I haven't prayed for 30 years because I'm constantly najis, my brother. I'm never tahir. There's a cure for it from the sunnah. No, bro, trust me, I can't pray. Okay? طيب. These ulama say, don't go with what the sunnah has. Give in to the wasawis al-madhmuma fi kathrat as-sabl al-ma. Give more water. You will become pure. More water. And the Shaykh goes on, he mentions more, but then he says, وَتَقَعَ الْأَدَاوَ بَيْنَ الطَّائِفَتَيْن بِسَبَبِ تَرْكْ حَذْ مِمَّا ذُكِّرُ بِهِ وَالْبَغَاء الَّذِي هُوَ مُجَاوَزَ الْحَدِّ إما تفريط وتضييع للحق وإما عداوة فعلا للظلم وفعلا للظلم. So now the Shaykh is saying here, when these people have given in to the wasawis and not following the taharatul external and internal purification, what happens is that the impurities, the internal impurities which haven't been purified of hasad and wasawis spread, and it creates disunity and rejection of the message of the Prophet ﷺ. And the Shaykh goes on, and like we said, I don't want to make it about Majmu Fatawa, but we are going to continue with a comparison between the two. فَإِذَا عَرَفْتَ أَنَّ الشِّرْكَ, Shaykh Muhammad ibn Wahhab, al-Qawaid al-Arba said, فَإِذَا عَرَفْتَ أَنَّ الشِّرْكَ, if you know that shirk, إِذَا خَالَتَ الْإِبَادَةِ أَفْسَدَهَا, if you know that shirk, if it is mixed up with worship, it will nullify and corrupt that act of worship. وَأَحْبَتَ الْعَمَلِ, and it will nullify all rewards and any kind of acceptance for that action. وَصَارَ صَاحِبُهُ مِنَ الْخَالِدِينَ فِي النَّارِ. And that person, may Allah preserve us and our families and our beloved ones, will become of those people who will come, actions are rejected, and he will be from those people who are everlasting in the fire. Why? Because he's come to Allah on the Day of Judgment with shirk. Shaykh al-Islam, in the beginning of Majmu Fatawa here on page 21, says something also which is very similar, where he says that وَذَلِكَ أَنَّ الْعَبْدِ بِكُلِّ حَيٍّ وَبِكُلِّ مَخْلُوقٍ سوى الله هو فقير محتاج إلى جلب ما ينفع. Every single thing that is alive and every single thing that has been created is poor in front of Allah, and he needs Allah's assistance to benefit. وَدَفْعْ مَا يَضُرُّهُ. So all benefit and harm can only come through assistance from Allah. And once a person falls into shirk, they fall into being disconnected with their master. And then the Shaykh goes on to talk about the meaning of rububiyyah, and the Shaykh then goes on to talk about the need for mankind to worship their Lord. وَحَاجَتِهِمْ إِلَيْهِ فِي إِبَادَتِهِمْ إِيَّاهِ كَحَاجَتِهِمْ وَأَعْظَمْ مِنْ خَلْقِهِ لَهُمْ رُبُوبِيَّتِهِ إِيَّاهُمْ. That worshipping Him alone is more important than their very existence. Because like the Sheikh Muhammad has just said here, if you exist but you die upon shirk, it's as if your life has had no purpose. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah is saying the same thing. When you meet Allah, number one, you need Allah to assist you so that you can gain His happiness. But also, Tawheed is more important than your existence. And he said something also very interesting on the next page after that. وَلَوْ حَصَلْ لِلْعَبْدِ لِذَاتِ أَوْ سُرُورٍ بِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ فَلَا يَدُومُ ذَلِكَ. If a person ever falls into shirk, ever falls into worshipping other than Allah, then it is not something which can ever be permanent or everlasting or something which is stable. So he said, Shaykh al-Islam, sometimes you will find him being happy in one thing and not happy in another thing, and then he will change and he'll be happy in something else and not being happy in something. He will not be stable in his life, internally and externally. Shaykh Muhammad rahimahullah said, then you will know أن أهم عليك معرفة ذلك لعل الله, then you will know the very importance of Tawheed and these Qawaid al-Arba. May Allah free you from this web or this trap. هذه الشبكة وهي الشرك, and this web and this trap is to make shirk with Allah الذي قال الله تعالى فيه, that Allah has said about it, talking about shirk. إن الله لا يغفر أن يشرك به ويغفر ما دون ذلك لمن يشاء. That Allah will not forgive shirk, but He will forgive anything lesser than shirk on يوم القيامة. وذلك بمعرفة أربع قواعد ذكرها الله تعالى في كتابه. And the only way that you can be steadfast upon Tawheed and meet Allah with the religion of Ibrahim is if you understand four very important principles that Allah has mentioned in His book. And the Shaykh here is saying that this is the most important of knowledge in this paragraph here, because the opposite of Tawheed is shirk. The opposite of guidance is misguidance. The opposite of confusion is yaqeen. So he is telling you that the only way you can save yourself is to know the opposites here. Tawheed, shirk, guidance, misguidance, and confusion, and yaqeen. al-Qa'idah al-Ula, the first principle, and ta'lam, that you know, أن الكفار الذين قاتلهم رسول الله, that the kuffar that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam fought against, مقرون بأن الله تعالى هو الخالق. They affirmed, they totally agreed that Allah is the creator of all creation. Al-Mudabbir, He's the one who created it, and He is the one who sustained it. وأن ذلك لم يدخلهم في الإسلام. Besides that, they were not perceived as being Muslims. They were not accepted as being Muslims. They said La ilaha illallah when it comes to Him being the creator and the sustainer. And some of the explainers have also said that they even acknowledged some of the names and attributes of Allah. قُلْ مَنْ يَرْزُقُكُم مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ. Who is the one that gives you rizq from the heavens? Is it your idol or is it Allah? فَسَيَكُونُ اللَّهُ. They will say it was Allah. مَنْ يُخْرِجُ الْحَيَّ مِنَ الْمَيِّتِ وَيُخْرِجُ الْمَيِّتَ مِنَ الْحَيِّ. Who is the one who gives life and death? Is it that idol? Is it Lat? Is it Uzza? No. Is it the Kaaba itself? No, it's Allah. Of course, He is the one who created. He's the Rabb. The Rabb, the Rububiyyah belongs to Him. مَنْ يُدَبِّرُ الْأَمْرِ. Who is the one who has the, sustains the creation, universe? فَسَيَكُونُ اللَّهُ. So now the ulama have said from this is that they affirmed Rububiyyah for Allah, and they even affirmed some names and attributes for Him, but besides that, despite that, they were not Muslims. And the Prophet ﷺ came to teach them correctness. And from here we know that a Rabb, a Lord, is somebody who, or is Allah, the creator, the provider, the sustainer, and the lawgiver. And this is what the Shaykh is saying here, huwa al-Khaliq al-Mudabbir, afterwards, inshallah. Despite them saying this, he challenged them and he warned them against the hellfire. And also here we understand from now this first principle is that Tawheed doesn't mean that we say La ilaha illallah. A Muslim is not a person who says La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah and says that's it, I worship Allah and that's it. Tawheed and entering into Islam correctly has to have negation and affirmation. وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولٍ. Allah sent every single nation a messenger. And اعبدوا Allah, worship Allah, but also, does He stop there, just worship Allah? You have to clear the table and affirm it only for Allah. Negation and affirmation. Also we learn from this that all acts of worship are tawqifi. That every single act of worship can only be legislated from Allah. So they had practices. They even used to practice the Hajj. They even used to pray and make dua and all these things. They used to fast. And the ulama used to say they even used to fast Ashura because it was connected to Ibrahim, and they had practices where they used to worship Allah. But besides this, the Prophet ﷺ said, no. Legislation is through wahi. And there's something which Shaykh al-Islam talks about extensively in volume number 1 here, when talking about Rububiyyah and Uluhiyyah and Asma wa Sifat and Tawassul and Shafa'a, we will see here, Shafa'a. He talks about Iman being your belief, your statements and your actions. He says this over and over again. The reason why is because if we were to accept that Iman is just in your heart, I don't need to have a hijab, I don't need to pray, I don't need to have a beard, I can engage in riba, I can do whatever I want, because I've said La ilaha illallah, and I will go to Jannah through it. If this was sufficient, then the Prophet ﷺ would not have fought these people. Because they've said that Allah is our creator also, but there was no tawheed in action. There was no tawheed in action. This is what Ibn Taymiyyah goes through over again. He said, ijma from the Salaf, that your Iman, you say La ilaha illallah, is connected to your speech, it's connected to your actions, it's connected to your belief. This is the only way you'll be saved. والدليل, what's the evidence for this first قاعدة؟ قوله تعالى كل من يرزقكم من السماء والأرض. Who is the one who gives you rizq, ya Quraysh, in the heavens and earth? أمن يملك السمع والأبصار ومن يخرج الحي من الميت ويخرج الميت من الحي ومن يدبر الأمر. The Quraysh will say فسيقولون الله فقل أفلا تتقون. Will you not then worship Allah? So to summarize this, we now know the first qa'idah, that we all have to be very, very careful about our deeds. We have to preserve them from being nullified, and we have to engage in what will benefit us in speech and actions and belief. And to say Allah is our Lord without having tawheed in actions is not sufficient. Shaykh al-Islam on page 23 of Majmu Fatawa, فأما التوحيد الربوبية الذي أقر به الخلق. All of creation have affirmed that Allah is their Lord. وقرر أهل الكلام فلا يكفي وحده بل هو من الحجة عليهم. It's not sufficient. Mankind, every single one of them, even people today who worship idols, will say, oh, you worship none. They believe in one supreme God, even though they have different idols for different things. But they believe there's one supreme one. All of that is not sufficient. Rather, it's a proof against them, like Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah said here. al-Qawaid al-Thaniya أنهم يقولون. These people, the kuffar of Quraysh, they say, ما دعوناهم وتوجهناهم إليهم إلا لطلب القربة والشفاعة. We're not worshipping this idol. It's not worshipping this idol. This idol is going to do one of two things for us. Number one, either Allah loves this idol, or it's going to help us to get closer to Allah. Number one. And we will see these two types of qurbah, where the Shaykh gives in the third principle, that some of these were beloved to Allah, so they took them as worship. Some of them were not beloved to Allah, but they just created a fallacy where they will help them get closer to Allah. Either it will help them to get closer to Allah, or it will help them intercede. So the second principle here is that shirk and deviance in uluhiyyah usually comes about with a person believing that this thing that they are worshipping besides Allah will help them A, either to get close to Allah, or B, help them intercede on their behalf to Allah. So now we know that shirk in rububiyyah is not the only form of shirk. There is shirk in uluhiyyah also. But now also we learn from this that when a person falls into shirk in uluhiyyah, he will corrupt every single aspect of iman. And he will also corrupt the tawheed that he feels that he may already have. So a person believes that Allah, or a Lord, a supreme deity, is the one. But I'm worshipping idol A, B, C, D to get closer to him or to intercede to him. What he is doing is that he is corrupting all the aspects of iman. Because number one, if Allah is that Lord, then you are disrespecting Him by worshipping something other than Him. If your father is your father, but you want to disobey your father by respecting somebody else on the pretense that this person is actually going to please your father, does that make sense? Whereas obey your father and make him happy. Until Allah is the highest example. So there's a contradiction clearly. But what they did then is they used things that Allah loves and Allah has legislated, and they corrupted those things. So what they did, as we will see in the next qa'idah, they ended up worshipping the angels. They ended up naming the angels. They ended up saying that the angels were daughters of Ar-Rahman. They ended up attributing lies to Allah. So this is now, they've corrupted the first pillar of Iman. They've corrupted the second pillar of Iman. Now the third pillar, the Kutub, Surah An'am and Surah A'raf, extensive, Surah of Yunus, extensive, talking about how the mushrikun, if you are upon correctness, you're worshipping this idol. What are all these things that you've innovated in the religion? Where does all that come from? You've corrupted your books. You've attributed lies to Allah. And then what they did was, in the belief in the prophets, is they ended up changing the Sharia of Ibrahim. They ended up imitating the mushriks anyway. They ended up imitating people who are deviated anyway. And then they ended up disrespecting their Anbiya and their Rasul, either directly or indirectly. Indirectly, by going against the command that he's come with. Ibrahim was a Hanif. He destroyed his own father's idols. And then you say that he is our grandfather. We are from Quraysh. We are from lineage of Ibrahim, Ismail. But we believe in Latinos. Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense. So not only are they imitating what Ibrahim came to eradicate, but they are going against his own teachings. So that's belief in the books. And then the belief in the last day, they ended up disbelieving through this shirk. They ended up disbelieving in the resurrection and recompense with Allah. So you can see that there was a clear contradiction, and this is what Shaykh al-Islam just referred to also in Majmu Fatawa ibn Taymiyyah. What's the dalil for this? What's the dalil for this qaida al-thaniya, that they only claim to get closeness and shafa'a? قوله تعالى والذين اتخذوا من دونه أولياء. They say that those people who take other than Allah's worship, ما نعبدهم إلا ليقربونا إلى الله زلفى. We are only worshipping these things so that they will get closer to Allah. إن الله يحكم بينهم فيما هم فيه يختلفون. These people are lying, and Allah is going to challenge them on the day of judgment for this. إن الله لا يهدي من هو كاذب كفار. These people are arrogant, these people are liars, and Allah will not give guidance to these kind of people. What dalil? So this is the dalil for closeness, and Allah preserve us from this, because anybody can be plucked away from guidance and be prevented and fall into what Allah says, Inna Allah la yahdi man huwa kadhib. May Allah guide us all, and may He steadfast our progeny that we haven't even met yet, and our close family members. What dalil shafa'a now? What's the dalil for intercession? They claim that this thing is only helping us, or this thing that we are worshipping is more beloved to Allah than us, so they will plead on our behalf. قوله تعالى ويعبدون من دون الله ما لا يضرهم ولا ينفعهم. They, Allah has called this worship. This is worship. And this thing that you are worshipping cannot benefit you and it cannot harm you. وَيَقُولُونَ هَؤُلَاء شُفَعَاؤُنَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. And they say these things are going to get us close to Allah. Question here. Why does Allah say مَا لَا يَضُرُّهُمْ before يَنْفَعُهُمْ? This idol that they are worshipping, it cannot harm them and it cannot benefit them. Why did Allah say it cannot benefit them and it cannot harm them? Coincidence? He just said it. What do you think?
What do you say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
Why did Allah say مَا لَا يَضُرُّهُمْ before وَلَا يَنْفَعُهُم?
I think it's logical.
Why?
Because if you can harm this man, surely I can benefit him, or I can't do anything for him, like in terms of other things.
Okay, so he's powerful, so he can't harm you, and because of that level of superiority he has over you, he cannot benefit you either.
But if I can't benefit this man,
maybe you can't harm him.
Yeah.
Possible.
If I can harm him, there is some benefits I can give him as well.
Possible.
Or the worship and shirk of him by joining partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring them harm first.
Okay.
Before them attaining any benefit from.
Okay. Maybe. Ibn Jama'ah, from one of the Mufassirun, has said, and we will see this in the Qawaid al-Arba, is that when people want to seek intercession, they normally do this when they're going through hardships. I go to the grave of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Ya Rasulullah, I can't have any children. Ask your Lord to give me children. Ya Rasul, this kind of stuff. You see it all the time, may Allah preserve us. These things cannot harm you, they cannot benefit you. And as we see in the fourth principle, shirk becomes rampant when things get hard. إذا ابتلي لا يصبر So now from this second principle we have taking something as worship, irrespective of whether you're saying that it's going to get you closer to Allah or it's going to intercede on your behalf, is shirk. طيب. Question. O Allah, I ask you by the honor of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam to forgive my sins. What's the ruling on this? Bid'ah. Is it shafa'ah? By the honor of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Is this intercession?
This is wasila, isn't it? It's wasila.
This is bid'ah. This is not shirk. This is bid'ah. So number one, asking Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, O Rasulullah, O Lat, O Uzza, either you are asking that thing to draw closer to Allah or you are asking that thing to help you intercede, outright shirk. طيب. Asking Allah because of the virtue of something virtuous, innovation. I want to go to the Prophet ﷺ's grave. I'm not going to turn to the Prophet ﷺ and make dua, but I'm going to turn to the Qibla and make dua and say, Oh Allah, give me a child, because I think this place here is blessed. What's the ruling, right?
Bid'ah.
Bid'ah, why?
Because this has never been practiced before. Like if you think that this...
Barakallah, Jazakallah khair. This is an innovation. But this is connected to the first point where you feel that a place can get you closer to Allah, where there is no dalil. We're talking about the grave, we're not talking about the... We're talking about the grave, we're not talking about the masjid. We're talking about a grave or an idol or something where you feel that there is a benefit and there is no dalil for it. طيب. So now here we have a differentiation. Seeking closer to Allah can be shirk, can be bid'ah. A summary of the second principle here now is that if we equate other things to Allah or we give something which is more to other than Allah, then this is shirk. But yes,
Question.
yeah.
In your dua, when you say like bijah Muhammad, or because for seeking like dua or supplication, and you say like bimakan Muhammad indaka ya Allah, something like this. Is that shirk?
This is This is the same makan Muhammad
It's
indaka.
something like upon the creation of Adam, he said
This
that.
is weak. This is a weak
It's weak,
narration.
right?
Yeah, it's a weak narration. And the Shaykh actually talks about it in the rest of Majmu al-Fatawa. طيب. What does the Shaykh actually say about this? Page number 27, Majmu al-Fatawa. The Shaykh says, وقد يحتاجون على من ينكرها بالنصوص وآثار تارة وبذوق الوجد أخرى إذا أنكر اللذة. لا, that's not what I want. الوجه الثالث أن المخلوق ليس عنده للعبد نفع ولا ضر ولا عطاء ولا مانع ولا هدى ولا الضلال ولا النصر ولا خذلان. That nothing can benefit you or harm you except Allah. Nothing from the creation can benefit you or harm you except Allah. And this is exactly what the Shaykh has mentioned in this second point. And then the Shaykh said on page 31, Al-Wajh al-Sabi', and the Shaykh is talking about different aspects when he's talking about shirk. Listen to this, what he says. أن غالب الخلق, most of creation, يطلبون إدراك حاجتهم بك وإن كان ذلك ضررا عليك. Most of creation want people to know about the hardships that they are going through, even if it's going to be harmful for you. So we have Zulfa and we have Shafa, and they're going through hardships. Even if it's going to cause hardship for other people, this is the nature of man. and they fall into shirk and they do these actions, فَإِنَّ صَاحِبَ الْحَاجَةِ أَعْمَى لَا يُعْرِفْ إِلَّا قَضَاءَهُ. And this person is misguided and he doesn't know his true stance or his true status. والوجه الثامن أنه إذا أصابك ضر كالخوف والجوع والمرض فإن الخلق لا يقدرون على دفعها إلا بإذن الله. It's the same thing that Shaykh has said here. If you go through some kind of hardships, the creation cannot remove fear or hunger or any kind of difficulty. It's a right that can only belong to Allah Jalla wa Ala. So zulfa, seeking closeness, shafa'a, is something which is only for Allah. Then the Shaykh goes on and he says, وَالشَّفَاعَةُ شَفَاعَةً. Intercession is of two types. So this is a response to what he has just said about what the mushrikeen have fallen into. Shafa'a manfiyya wa shafa'a muthbata. There is shafa'a which is negated and there is shafa'a which is affirmed. For shafa'a manfiyya, and he begins with the negated kind. ما كانت تطلب من غير الله, is whenever a person seeks from other than Allah, فيما لا يقدر عليه إلا الله. Only Allah can give that thing, but they will ask something else. This is intercession. Only Allah can give the person a child, but he goes to the grave of the Prophet ﷺ and he supplicates to him instead. وَالدَّلِيلُ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى. And what's the evidence for this? Is this something that he has made up? Allah says in the Quran, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَنفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاكُم مِّن قَبْلِ أَن يَأْتِيَ يَوْمٌ لَا بَيْعٌ فِيهِ وَلَا خُلَّةٌ وَلَا شَفَاعَةٌ وَالْكَافِرُونَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. O you believe, go ahead and spend and do good deeds from what Allah has given to you before a day will come to you when trade and your friendships and your intercession will not benefit you at all. And those people who have fallen into kufr and shirk, they are the true oppressors on that day and they will see it. So what is this manfiyah? What is this kind of intercession which is neglected or rejected? Ibn Taymiyyah says elsewhere in Majmu Fatawa, just like Allah has told us to rely upon Him, and He has told us to take the appropriate means, because this is part of tawakkul. You can't say, I'm going to get married, I'm just sitting here. If you want to get married, you need to take the appropriate means, and have tawakkul that Allah is going to give you the best partner, and have tawakkul that Allah is going to bless you in your marriage. I have tawakkul that He's going to give you good children, etc. Tawakkul is that you take a connection with Allah, with reliance, and you take the means which will actually physically benefit you. Shaykh al-Islam is saying here that intercession which is nullified is against tawakkul with Allah, because you are not attached with Allah, you are attached to something other than Allah, and you are taking means which will not benefit you. Now, taking means which will not benefit you can be major kufr or it could be minor kufr. Major form of kufr is when you think that this thing will actually benefit you and it has no power to benefit you at all. And you make this the very cause. You have an idol in front of you and you say, this is the idol that will help me. Not Allah, not anything else. This is the thing. Now people do this in their aqeedah. They do this every single day. Touch wood. It's going to happen, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed it will happen. Your son is going through difficulties, let's get the ta'weez. Let's get the ta'weez. But it's Allah, yeah, I know Allah, but it's the ta'weez. This is major kufr, when you make the something a sabab above Allah. This is rejected with Allah. And this is the same thing that the mushriks of Arabia at that time, they didn't understand that. I'm worshipping Lat just to get closer to Allah. But they made this thing the object of their worship. So Allah says about them, فَمَا تَنْفَعُهُمْ شَفَاعَةُ الشَّافِعِينَ. They will not benefit from it in the slightest. وَالشَّفَاعَةُ al-muthbata and the intercession. So now some people say, well, you guys don't believe in tawassul and shafa'ah. You Wahhabis are like this. Read the man's work. وَالشَّفَاءَ الْمُثْبَتَ. There is something there, my brother and sisters. Just understand the Quran and Sunnah correctly, please. هِيَ الَّتِي تُطْلَبْ مِنَ اللَّهِ. You ask directly from Allah. وَالشَّافِعِ مُكَرَّمْ بِالشَّفَاءَ. Your master is the one who decides, or who decrees, not decides, who decrees who he gives the nobility to intercession to. When you go to the grave and you make dua to that grave, you are taking matters into your own hands that you don't have the right to. When you make shafa'ah to your Lord, the master, the owner of the heavens and the earth, the one who has been spending even before you have been created and will continue to spend, the one who owns everything, whole dominion, the one, if the whole of the creation was gathered and will be gathered, it will not even be a mustard seed in his palm, and he will roll it up and he will shake it and he will say, Ayn al-Jabbarun, where are they? Where is your shafa'ah today? Where is that idol? He is the one who can give it to you, my brothers and sisters. And you are that little speck in that creation. You turn to him in Tawheed, look at how he repays you. You are completely insignificant in the greater scheme of things. Billions of years, for eternity, Allah has been al-Khaliq. He has been al-Raziq. He has been Rahman. He's always been Rahman. He hasn't been Rahman after he created you and he's decided to give you food and drink. He's always been Rahman, and he'll always continue to be Rahman subhanahu. Now this Lord, this Master of yours, wants for you to worship him, and he will show you how merciful he is to you in the dunya and akhirah. He will show you how he is al-Razaq. وَالشَّافِعُ مُكَرَّمْ بِالشَّفَاعَةِ. You are noble when you have Tawheed. وَالْمَشْفُوءُ لَهُ مَنْ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ قَوْلُهُ وَعَمَلُهُ بَعْدَ الْإِذْنِ. So now the Shaykh has given the conditions for correct intercession. Number 1, Allah permits it. Number 2, Allah allows for intercession to happen. And number 3, Allah allows intercession to happen to that person. And someone might say now, the Quraysh, they didn't know about this. They didn't know about these conditions. Ibn Taymiyyah elsewhere in Majmu Fatawa said that when talking about the different types of intercession and getting closeness to Allah, he said you get closer to Allah by asking by his names, and Ya Razzaq rizqni, Ya Rahman rahimni, etc. You ask tawassul and intercession from Allah directly from his names and attributes, but also from your good actions. Oh Allah, we have believed. Rabbana inna amanna faktubna ma'a shahidin. We have believed. It's a good action, so write us. Qina adhab an-nar, another ayah. We have believed, we've heard a messenger coming, we have believed, save us from the fire. That belief is a good action, and through this you are making tawassul to Allah. And in Ibn Taymiyyah, it says from the Dalal al-Nubuwwah, from the signs of prophethood, even from before he was a prophet, Khadija knew that he was upon goodness, Abu Bakr knew he was upon goodness, he was known as Al-Amin. So when he said, I am a messenger of Allah, they said, undoubtedly you are the messenger of Allah. Why? Khadija said, your Lord will never forsake you. You feed the poor, you walk with the needy, you uphold the ties of kinship. Abu Sufyan said that if it wasn't for Arab prestige, I would have lied against Muhammad in front of Hercules. Or Herakl. I don't know what it is. Herakl, but the English one was, it's not Hercules, is it? Herakl, the Roman emperor at that time, Abu Sufyan went to him and goes, had it not been for my own morals, I would have lied against him. So he asked me, does he ask for money? Does he eat from the zakat? Is he allowed? Does he do all these sifat? This is because his actions were a sign of his iman and closeness to Allah. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. So what's the dalil for this? Allah says, "Man dhal ladhi yashfa'u indahu illa bi'idhnih." And this ayah has become from the ayah which protects you day and night from shaitan, protects your family. Is there any closeness and protection and intercession except through Allah? We'll just close with this. I know I said we'll complete the book today, but inshallah we can complete it next week. Bi'idhnillah. Ibn Taymiyyah talks extensively then, talking about the shafa and intercession. He goes on and he has so many benefits just from one ayah in the Quran. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Nearly about 70, 80 pages. He gives benefits after benefits connected to Tawheed and Iman. And then he connects it with إِهْدِنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمُ. And he talks about how people went into extremism and ghulu for their love for people and idols, and where they ended up worshipping things that didn't deserve worship. And they ended up from a state of justice, of fitrah, to a state of injustice and shirk. But then, as if, the resemblance isn't stark enough, فصل, page 116, وقال الشيخ الإسلام رحمه الله في الشفاعة المنفية في القرآن. Sheikh Muhammad ibn al-Wahhab didn't make this up. He's connected to the way of the ulama, and he has benefited from Sheikh al-Islam himself. And then the Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah in Majmu Fatawa goes on to talk about how Ahl Sunnah believe that there is a thing called shafa'ah, and that is prescribed for those people who are deficient in deeds, or maybe even sinners from Ahl Tawheed. And then on page 121 he goes on to talk about those people who rejected shafa'ah, known as the Wa'idiyah, the Khawarij and the Mu'tazila. And their argument is that you cannot have sin alongside Iman. You cannot say La ilaha illallah and then disobey your master. If you sin, major sin, you're out. Rejected it. They've rejected it. And why is this relevant? It's relevant today because there are certain people within the Muslim Ummah, if you don't agree with them, they will not class you as being Muslim. If you don't agree with them, they will say that your wealth and your honor is halal. If you not agree with them, they will slander you, and they will put you in some kind of bracket. This is what the Khawarij believed, that everybody who disagreed with them, there was no tawbah for them. And the Mu'tazila denied it because they said, Ahl Sunnah, you guys are backward. You're not using your brains. You guys are backward. And why is that relevant today? Because we're seeing this today. And we're seeing this with mainstream media, calling for changes in the way people think about Islam because of aql. But we don't need this. Like Shaykh al-Islam himself said, if you understand the religion correctly, then this will be in line with your aql in the first place. It's because the Muslims have gone away from the religion. Now they've got a corrupted view of religion. So now what they need to do is they need to use the aql to make that justified. When if you go back to the original one, then your aql will be here anyway. But then he said on page 129 that وأخبر عن المشركين أنهم قالوا ما نعبدهم إلا ليقربونا إلى الله زلفى. And then he goes on to talk about zulfa and shafa'ah and the shafa'ah manfiyah, just like what Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad ibn al-Wahhab has done here. And bi'idhnillah, next week we can finish the book Qaida al-Thalitha and Rabi'a with the conclusion and more benefits from Majmu Fatawa. I ask Allah to make this beneficial for us all and make it as a proof for us and not against us, and that He makes us of those people who have tawheed in the dunya and the akhirah, our family members and our children, and that He unites us all on Yawm al-Qiyamah with our family members together, and that He doesn't humiliate us on Yawm al-Qiyamah, and He doesn't separate us from our beloved ones on Yawm al-Qiyamah, because that day, if you are separated, you will never see them again. هذا والله أعلم وصلى اللهم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه